Another Village Vice heading your way. I'm Zach Blackerby. He is Brad Law. Going into the season and throughout fall camp, there was so much energy and excitement about the idea of having two quarterbacks, right? The veteran Payton Thorne with Robby Ashford, who can do anything with his legs. Now, Brad, since the Cal game, that energy has drastically died down. At least that's what I've seen. Have you seen similar things?
Yeah, for sure. You know what? I think though the fan base is still trying to figure it out, the same way the coaching staff is still trying to figure it out.
Sure.
I think everybody's trying to get a handle on how they feel about the quarterbacks. Everybody was so surprised that they weren't able to get it moving in the first half against Cal. And
Right.
so they don't know yet. You know, like if Auburn had done against Cal something similar to what it did against UMass, and then used Robby effectively in the same way, I think you'd still see the same type of excitement about both quarterbacks. You'd see people wearing Robby like a logo on their shirt, like, yeah, look what we got, huh? Check it out, check it out.
Yeah.
So I think until we see it consistently, effectively, people will dial back on that enthusiasm a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't seem like Hugh Freeze has lost the enthusiasm. And he was asked point blank, like, if you want consistency at quarterback, I'm paraphrasing the question here, but if you want consistency at quarterback, why wouldn't you just leave Payton in? And he said, you know, there's still touches for Robby Ashford. They've got to get Robby touches. And look, I don't disagree with that, but the way he's been used, specifically in the Cal game, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I don't know if that's something where they go to the drawing board and they say, hey, this can't happen.
Yeah.
Or if they say, okay, these are the reasons when we would put Robby in, a Robby Ashford package in, and it's got to meet this criteria.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how you do that because it's hard. There's a reason why a lot of two quarterback systems don't work, because it's hard. And there's so many different elements that go into it. It's more than just play design, Brad.
Yeah.
It's confidence, it's flow, it's leadership. And also the defense is going to have an idea of what you're trying to do to them when you change personnel. I mean, they do that with running backs. They're definitely going to be able to do that with quarterbacks. So there's just so much. There's so many reasons why two quarterback systems don't work. And I think some of what we saw against Cal is exactly why that's the case.
Yeah. We don't really want consistency unless the consistency is productive. Like, you can be consistently mediocre. You could be consistently poor. You don't want consistency if you're mediocre or poor.
That's true.
You want productive. And it doesn't matter if you use 5 quarterbacks. If everybody's productive, I don't care. Nobody cares. Nobody cares as long as it's productive. So the question is, can Payton be more productive if he's given the higher share of the snaps in the game? And that's what we're figuring out. Like, you think back to previous years where Auburn had a couple of different quarterbacks that played. And I think about like 2001 and 2002 when Daniel Cobb and Jason Campbell. Zach, I know it's in the Wayback Machine for you.
I was like 8. Yeah, right.
It would almost depend on the opponent or the week as to who provided the spark for the offense. Particularly in 2002, there were some games where Jason couldn't move the offense effectively. Daniel did. Otherwise, there were games where Daniel didn't move effectively. Jason did. It's almost like if you drop a rock underwater, there's no way to predict the exact path that rock is going to take down to the bottom. It is fluid. It changes. Defenses change. Plays change. People change. Everybody else on your offense changes. Like, it's not a machine. As much as you'd like for it to be a machine, it's not. And so it really is I don't know the right word for it. It's a thing to figure out, though.
Yeah.
What gives your offense the best chance to be productive the most?
So let's say the starting offense plays 30 snaps against Samford.
Mhm.
Saturday. What's the quarterback split of those 30 snaps?
24-6.
Okay.
I think 24-6. I think 80%. With the 6 maybe coming in the red zone. I really do. I think you're going to see something similar to what you saw against UMass out of Robby. I could be wrong on that, but that's my expectation anyway, that they'll give Payton 80% of the games in the balance snaps.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the best case scenario is that this game looks like the opener against UMass, right? Because then maybe you can chalk it up. Okay, maybe Philip Montgomery, the offensive coordinator and play caller for all of 3 plays Saturday night against Cal, maybe he just got spooked a little bit. It's like, oh my gosh, we can't run the ball. And maybe he panicked a little bit. I don't know. That's certainly what it feels like. The farther we get away from Saturday night's game, that's more of what it feels like. But, we're not on that headset. We don't know. But even the way Hugh Freeze talked about it throughout this week, it just seems like their plan didn't work and they didn't know what to do. So I think the plan will work against Samford, Brad.
Yeah,
I
do too. And I think you need it as a primer, as a tune-up for Texas A&M the following week. You need to have more confidence in that primary starter going into your first conference game on the road. It will help, and we'll talk about this more next week leading into the A&M game. But
sure,
the fact that this team, not just the offense, I was going to say just the offense, but the fact that this team's already had a road game and it's much further away, and it's been in a disadvantageous time. They've already faced a lot of road adversity that will make A&M next week a lot more palatable.
I think that's a good point. Brad. All right. A key starter was not at practice yesterday, per reports, Brad. We'll discuss that in just a moment. Yeah. But as a bettor, you demand perfection, and MyBookie delivers. The NFL and college football season, obviously, they are here, and they've got a new cash out system to give you options to bet and win all season long. If the first 2 legs of your parlay hit, they give you the option to cash out early and use those funds for another bet, or you can let it ride for the chance at a bigger payday. Join the MyBookie family for an entire season filled with odds boosts, free bets, and super contests. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, register for a free account, and when you're ready to make that first deposit, use promo code NEXTROUND to grab a welcome bonus on the house. Promo code NEXTROUND to claim that welcome bonus, and also you'll get a free chip to use at the MyBookie casino. You can bet anything, anywhere, anytime, only with MyBookie. Auburn starting defensive back Donovan Kaufman was not there at practice yesterday, at least during the viewing window for the media on Tuesday. Donovan Kaufman has been exceptional. Yeah. He's been probably the biggest surprise on the team so far. Some people would say Eugene Asante. I thought Eugene Asante would be good. Donovan Kaufman, I thought, was going to get buried in the depth chart, and boy, was I wrong on that. He's been exceptional. But yeah, no Donovan Kaufman, not a huge deal against Samford, right? But obviously would be a huge deal against Texas A&M next week. So hopefully they're just being cautious with him. Sounds like he got banged up a little bit against Cal. They're probably just letting him rest, but worth monitoring.
For sure. Yeah. And you said it perfectly. Not as big a deal against Samford, you wouldn't think. Next week against A&M, you're going to need him both in the run game. A&M has perhaps the most underrated running back in the SEC. And then in the passing game too. If you force him to throw it 50 to 60 times in that game, then Donovan becomes a major factor in getting pressure on the quarterback, maybe even more so than in coverage. But we thought Donovan had a really terrific game against UMass. He had 4 tackles, he had a forced fumble, he had a sack, and all he did against Cal was come out and double his tackles. He had 8 stops, he forced another fumble, then went and recovered it. So these first 2 games that Donovan Kaufman has had, I would call him the biggest surprise defensively of the first 2 games. And you know what? He was steady for Auburn last year. He was a steady contributor game after game last year. We just didn't talk about him in fall camp. Didn't talk about him in summer and fall. So we didn't really talk about what his role would be, but he's thrived in this defense. He's thrived bringing pressure. He's been a sure tackler. He has been a playmaker. And so, yep, you need him in the lineup for conference play.
No question. Yeah, I mean, and he was kind of battling for a spot in this past spring.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, it all clicked for him. Yeah, you talk about his start to the year. I'm a big Pro Football Focus guy.
Yeah.
And he has by far the best rating on the team, a 92.3, which is like first round draft pick. Good.
Yeah.
Just for those under. And then Eugene Asante second with an 83.5. So, I mean, that's a big jump. His rush defense grades at 96.6. His pass rush grades at 93.9. Stupid.
Yeah.
Absurd numbers when you look at what Donovan Kaufman has done through his first 2 games.
Can you take us through those grades a little bit, Zach? Like if the average person who's watching doesn't quite understand what those grades mean, can you teach a little bit on that?
Yeah, so like a 70 is a pretty good score, right? So just for Keontae Scott's a 72, Jason Jones has been a 71, and like Larry Nixon's a 68.9, right? Like those are pretty solid players. Those are starting caliber players.
Yeah.
And then it drops off after that. Your 60s are what most people are going to be in, and then 50s and 40s are obviously kind of below average performance.
Yeah.
But yeah, so somebody through PFF charts every play and they get a grade. And they kind of take into account a lot of different things. They take into account where you lined up at, what you're doing on that specific play. And then like if you're pass rushing, they take that as a pass rushing snap. And then did you record a pressure, or did you get close to the quarterback, or did you hit the quarterback, or obviously did you get a sack? So they just compile all this data and give you a grade. But yeah, if you get a 90 or better, like,
yeah,
that's like an NFL team really, really wants you if you consistently score in the 90s. And that's what Donovan's done through the first 2 games. So hopefully this injury doesn't slow him down.
All right, let me diverge a little bit and ask you just a question off the cuff. That's Pro Football Focus, PFF. Let's go to ZBF.
Ooh.
Zach Blackerby Focus.
Ooh.
If I ask you to build starters and second team, your all-time Auburn secondary.
All-time?
Now, all-time, understand, I'm not expecting you to go back to the 40s and 50s, right? You don't have to take the safety from the 57 national championship team, even though that team gave up like 10 points all year. Their defense was exceptional. That's not in your era of watching Auburn football. I know you love corners. I know you're a big DB guy.
Yeah. Carlton Davis is definitely the first guy I'm taking. That's for sure. Carlton Davis, and honestly, probably Jamel Dean, because I think you kind of get 2 different things, and that's why the Bucs wanted both of them so badly. Carlton, I think you can kind of get the guy who can cover more ground, and Jamel, you can get the guy that can just beat the dude up at the line. But you also got to consider Roger McCreary. But I want a bigger corner if my first guy's Carlton Davis. And then safeties are tough because I don't know if our safeties have been that great over the last few years.
Where's your cutoff, by the way? Because if Carlos Rogers is not on your first,
sure, Carlos Rogers is great. I'm thinking of the other one, but yeah, Carlos Rogers. Can I put Sherwood back there? Because yeah, I mean, he's still playing in the league. I feel like he was really overlooked when he was here. So
he'd be one of your safeties. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I'll put Sherwood back there. Jamie and Sherwood. That'd be a pretty good group. I'd take that in a heartbeat.
Well, sure. Sure. All right, I like that. All right, that's ZBF.
What about you?
Zach
Give me yours real quick.
Oh, mine are somewhat nostalgic. Like I'd find a way to put Antoine Nolan on the team from the late 90s.
Yeah.
But Carlos Rogers would start at a corner. Yeah, probably Carlton Davis. They'd be my first 2. Junior Rosegreen would need to be one of my safeties.
That's a good one. Yeah.
And I would consider Zach Etheridge at a safety spot as well. That's a pretty formidable defensive backfield.
Yeah. They'd hit the crap out of you. That's for sure.
Yeah, they would. They
That's
really would.
Sure.
You wouldn't want to run the ball against them.
No, I don't think so.
You know what? Gerard Powers played 10 years in the NFL. He was a very good defensive back as well.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Those 2000s teams with Coach Tuberville had some guys on defense.
Yeah, they would just clobber you. There's no question. There's no question about it.
All right. I got to, before we
ahead.
move on, Lance's lock. Okay. It's time. It's time. You haven't done it yet. Why? NFL season's here. College football is going into week 3, for goodness sakes. We're going to look up at the end of Saturday after Auburn's won its homecoming game. And we're going to go, my gosh, the season's a quarter of the way over. Just like that.
Don't say
so it's time. Get some plays. Go to lanceslock.com. All right. You can still get the best price on the monthly packages or the annual packages. The annual package is the way to go, quite frankly. Sign up today. Get the best deal. Lanceslock.com. Don't wait any longer, please. Take care of it for you.
All right, let's look at some players that we are excited to see potentially step up or more of against Samford this weekend. I'll start.
Okay.
I can't wait to see Eugene Asante play football again. I can't wait. Saturday night, it's been too long. I need to see Eugene Asante destroying some people again and just taking over the football game. So Eugene Asante is my first guy that I'm like, okay, come on. Let's go play football. I want to watch you play.
He's kind of your number one. He's the reason you buy the ticket. He would be the number one guy for whom you buy the ticket, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm going to wake up Saturday morning. I'm going to look at my wife, but babe, wake up. Eugene Asante plays football today.
Let's work. I love it. All right. Jeremiah Cobb, more of 23. Hugh Freeze has mentioned that, it's in the little ways that he talks about Jeremiah Cobb. And if you listen to Carnell Williams talk about Jeremiah Cobb, they're the little inklings that they know this guy is going to be special.
Yeah.
He's special now. He's going to do some really special things. And I don't think they're going to use Jarquez and Damari to a greater extent against Samford than what they used him against Cal. I think it's guys down the depth chart that get more carries. And I think that's Jeremiah Cobb, and I think he'll be electric against Samford.
I think that's a good one. And I think he'll get the reps. So I like that answer. I like that answer a lot. What about getting Rivaldo Fairweather involved more early? I think that could be something that they make a point to do, at least in the passing game, right? He played a lot early in both games, but as far as throwing the ball to him, we saw him really take over the game and ultimately win the game for Auburn Saturday night. Do they force feed him the ball more? I think the answer to that should be yes.
Yeah. But
there's also a reason why you wouldn't choose to do that against Samford. Right. But I think this team needs game reps in the passing game.
You may be right about that. I took the ulterior road there. I don't think you force feed him against Samford. I do think that if he doesn't have 2 to 3 targets in the first quarter against A&M, it'll shock me if he does. I think you absolutely force feed him against A&M in a week and a half. I think, however, that a guy like Luke Deal, who's one of your leaders, one of your captains, I think you could try to get him a touch or two in the first quarter of this game.
He has not been off to a good start this year.
No. And I think this is a really good opportunity for him to do that. I think it's the best opportunity to do that until you get to the middle of November. So I'd kind of like to see that for Luke and his leadership and what he means to the team. I'd like to see him get going a little bit in this game.
I'm with you. Maybe we should say a few defensive names.
Yeah.
We've been all offense. No, I said Eugene Asante.
You said Eugene right off the bat. Yeah.
Maybe you should say more defense. I'm just kidding. Kayan Lee's been unbelievable. Here's me talking about corners again. Kayan Lee has been great, and he's been in a situation where they thought they were going to have a future NFL corner. Nehemiah Pritchett playing those snaps, and they've given them all to Kayan Lee because Pritchett isn't playing yet. And when the corner on the other side of you, excuse me, is DJ James, they're going to throw to the freshman. Mm-hmm. And he has been incredible at holding his own. So props to Kayan Lee. I am curious to see when Pritchett does come back, and I think that'll either be Saturday or the following Saturday. He's been practicing for a few weeks now. I'm expecting him back soon. But how do they use Kayan Lee? Do they just rotate their corners more often, or do they put him at nickel some? That's something I'm excited to see.
Sure. Jalen McLeod is a guy that I am excited to see.
Great answer.
85, 90%. He changes the defense. Again, the coaches just can't stop talking about what a difference he makes to the defense. This is a Samford offensive line that gave up 6 sacks in their game last week. Their tackles are 6'4", 287 and 6'4", 280. I think that's an advantageous matchup for Jalen McLeod and some of the other guys on the edge for Auburn. So I look forward to seeing what he can do turned loose.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think that's a good one. And then, we kind of called on Jason Jones and Justin Rogers last week. Like, we needed more of them. And boy, the whole defensive front seven showed out against Cal.
Yeah.
Keep that momentum going. I expect both of those guys to play well against Samford's undersized offensive line. Boy, those Samford boys, they've got some big tasks in front of them. This week. So
there you go.
Yeah. This game should not be close at any point of it, Brad.
No.
And so we'll see how Auburn responds to a road trip that seemed to wear them out a little bit. And then, I'm sure to some extent they're looking ahead to A&M a little bit.
I think it's only human to do that. I think it would only be natural. And again, because of the kind of the hangover from the trip, I don't expect things to look as clean, especially in the beginning, as they looked against UMass. But yeah, this is not a game where we're talking about Auburn winning or losing. We will include it in our Village Vice 6-pack tomorrow.
Ooh.
But only because, well, we're always going to include the Auburn game. But it's a pretty good weekend. This is another really, I think, intriguing weekend of football around the country. So we'll talk more about that in the Village Vice 6-pack tomorrow.
Yeah. I haven't seen a sports book put out lines yet.
Yeah.
So they probably won't at this point, but we'll still pick it for sure.
Yeah.
Brad, I think that about does it for today's show.
It will. Thanks for watching, everybody. Remember, everyone has vices. Make sure Village Vice is one of yours.